This is cool. All right, so I'm building this Mac Daddy drill press table for my drill press, but once I do that, that handle for raising and lowering is just going to be completely inaccessible. Not that it's a very convenient place to put it in the first place. So I use this tight reach wrench I got off of Amazon to kind of bring this out. I don't really care for this because I had to modify the shaft coming out of the drill press that the crank went on, and I had to kind of weld it in place, and it just wasn't long enough. So I'm going to custom make one to the length that I want so I can put the crank and the aperture for the drill anywhere I want it. That's what we're doing today. Let's get started. The first step was to figure out how long I wanted this thing, and I decided on 16.5 inches from center shaft to center shaft. So I took the sprockets that I'm using. These are number 35s and a number 35 chain, small number 35s. These have a 1/2 inch inside diameter on the sprockets. And I just moved them back and forth in the chain till I got them to about the length I wanted, marked the chain, and because I don't have one of those tools for taking chains apart, I just ground one side down and used a center punch to punch the shaft out. I ended up having to come back with a brad nail just to finish it off because my center punch was too big around. Now the chain was supplied with one of these chain unions. I don't know what this is called. We'll call it a chain union. And I just added that and put the clip on to hold everything together, and that gave me the finished size of the chain I'm going to use for this project. Now to lay out the sizes, I just drew a straight line, or roughly a straight line, on a piece of plywood, and I'm using a brad point bit, 1/2 inch brad point bit, and another 1/2 inch drill bit. Pulled everything taut and marked the two positions. It's important that when you're marking those positions, you want that chain to be as tight as you can get it. So I cut those two pieces of plywood out. One was with the marks on it, and another one just the same size as the other piece of plywood. And then I'm going to drill out those two positions that I marked with a 1 3/8 Forstner bit. The flange bearings I'm using have an OD of 1 3/8. I use those a lot in a lot of builds because they fit a 1 3/8 hole really, really well. So with the holes cut out, I added the bearings. And at this point, I'm going to check to make sure the chain is going to, and sprockets are all going to fit in the holes that I drilled, and everything worked out good at this point. So now I put everything together, and that's just going to give me a measurement for the center shaft. I should mention that the bearings, the flange side of the bearings go towards the inside, or towards the chain and sprocket. So once I had that all figured out and how thick it was between the two pieces of plywood, I cut two center pieces that are going to go between the chain and between the sprockets, and that's going to hold those two pieces of 1/2 inch plywood apart. Now once all that was done, I wanted to trim out those two pieces of plywood so they weren't quite so big and bulky. So I marked everything out, and I put a little round on each side, and then took this over to the table saw after removing the bearings. Don't do this with the bearings in. And I cut the width to size, and then took it over to the bandsaw and cut each of the back pieces a little on the round, or gave them a little round. So I decided I was going to go ahead and paint this. Not that it's necessary. You could paint it whatever color you want, but I'm painting it shop green, or the green I have all over the shop. Now when that was drying, I went back over to the drill press, and I had to cut off the tight reach wrench that I'd previously welded on. And I needed to extend the shaft coming out so it could receive the new lifting device. So I just used cut off the head of a 1/2 inch bolt and welded that right onto it, and then cleaned everything up with an angle grinder with a rough sanding disc on it. This wasn't quite centered. It was pretty close, not quite. And you'll see later it creates kind of a little bit of a wobble if the device isn't clamped in, but it's not bad. So after the paint had dried, I added the bearings back in, and the chain, and then the other side. Now on the one side, I just set a bolt in there loosely. That's actually going to go on the shaft on the drill press. And then I added some extra fasteners to this device to kind of hold it all together. Those screws are going to, and that center, keep this whole thing held together so the chain will stay running true. So with it done, I slid it over the shaft, and then there's some hex screws or hex screws, I guess, and I tightened those down on the shaft. I sanded a little flat spot. I didn't show that in the video, so I should have. And then I tightened the hex screws down on that, and then cut the shaft off to, you know, an appropriate length. And then that's it. You know, it was working. I had a little bit of a wobble to it, nothing serious. And that's all because I had I welded that shaft on just a touch crooked. But I'm really happy with the way this is working, and this is going to come in really handy when I build my drill press table. Okay, so this came out really cool. Couple of things I want to mention real quick is, first of all these things, everything came off of Amazon. The bearings were $4 a set, so that was about $8. The sprockets were a little over $4 a piece, so there was another $8, and the chain was $12, and that included the connection link. So relatively inexpensive, a lot better than the $70 for the tight reed wrench. Say that fast 3 times, right? I did have to, you know, the bolts were extra purchases, and of course the scrap plywood was an extra purchase. But this was a way better system, much cheaper, and I can make this at any length I wanted to. Now, I will mention the shaft coming out. The shaft coming out of drill presses is going to vary a little bit. Some are a 1/2 inch, which these will work for really well. The sprockets will work for, and the bearings will work for. Others are like a 9/16. Most Porter cables are a 9/16. Since I welded the 1/2 inch rod on this, it worked out. Now, if you have a 9/16, you'll either have to take an angle grinder and grind it down a little bit, or you'll have to get bearings and a sprocket that are, I don't think they make them in 9/16, but I do believe you can find them in 5/8. So, and maybe just a little shim in there, and you'd be good to go. So you wouldn't even have to modify the shaft coming out of the drill press. Next build is going to be the drill press table. I'm going to put the proper length shaft in there. At this point, I don't know how long I want this to be. I'm going to have a hand wheel on the end of it. Now that shaft is going to come through the hand wheel, and then I'll have an aperture on the end of that I can actually just stick a 1/2 inch square drive into. So if I want to go for long distances up and down, I can find my drill. If I just need to move it up and down a short distance to make minor adjustments, I can use the hand wheel. So the drill press table is going to be kind of a cool one, a little bit different than probably what most folks are used to. So come back and check that out. And then funny t-shirt of the day, links in the description box below. And we'll be talking to y'all real soon. Thanks for watching.